The shuttle bay door screamed open as Commander Lauren Pierce sprinted across the hangar deck, her boots hammering against metal plating. Behind her, 3 massive feline creatures bounded with impossible grace, their silver-streaked fur bristling as alarms shrieked through the station. "Ma'am, the Zenthari fleet just dropped out of hyperspace." Lieutenant Greg Donovan's voice crackled through her earpiece. 47 warships. They're demanding we surrender the cats. Lauren didn't slow down. The 3 tigers, each weighing over 600 pounds, kept perfect formation around her. She'd been caring for them for only 6 months. 6 months since Captain Ryan Holt had left them in her charge before disappearing into deep space on a classified mission. The lead tiger, Storm, released a sound that shook the deck plating. Not a roar, something else, something that made her teeth ache and her bones vibrate. The other 2, Ash and Ember, joined in. The frequency made the hull groan. "Commander, they're powering weapons," Greg shouted. "What do we do?" Lauren reached the command center and slammed her palm against the door panel. It hissed open. Inside, her skeleton crew of 12 stood frozen, staring at the view screen where an armada of alien warships filled the void. The Zenthar were apex predators in every system they touched, 7-foot-tall reptilian nightmares with technology that made human ships look like toys. They'd been hunting these 3 tigers across the galaxy for reasons no one understood. Storm padded forward and placed one massive paw on the command console. The screens flickered. Data streams appeared that Lauren had never seen before. Coordinates, weapon frequencies. "Shield harmonics. Is that cat hacking our systems?" Greg whispered. The Zenthari commander appeared on screen, his scaled face twisted in what might have been rage or hunger. "Human female. Return the specimens or your station burns." Lauren looked at Storm. The tiger's golden eyes met hers with an intelligence that made her skin prickle. In that moment, she understood. These weren't just animals. They never had been. "Greg, load every torpedo we have," she said quietly. "Commander, we've got 18 torpedoes against 47 warships. The math doesn't load them." Storm's paw pressed harder against the console. The station's lights dimmed. How it could have slipped outside of our perimeters. Every system began channeling power to weapons, shields, and something else. Something that made the air taste like lightning. The Zenthar fleet advanced. Lauren smiled. Ryan Holt had left his cats in her care. He'd trusted her with something precious. She was about to show an entire alien armada why that trust meant something. "Fire on my mark," she commanded. Storm roared. The station roared back. The first Zenthar warship exploded before Lauren even gave the order. Storm's paw remained locked on the console, and the tiger's entire body glowed with an eerie blue luminescence that spread through the station's circuitry like living electricity. The torpedoes launched themselves, but they moved wrong. Too fast. They curved through space at impossible trajectories, striking weak points that human sensors couldn't have detected. "What in the hell?" Greg breathed as 3 more enemy ships erupted into debris clouds. Ash and Ember moved to separate stations, placing their paws on dormant control panels. The moment they made contact, systems Lauren didn't know existed came online. Weapon batteries that weren't in any blueprint. Shield generators that hummed with frequencies outside human engineering. "Commander, I'm reading power signatures from sectors D through K," a young tech named Vanessa Park called out. "Those sections have been mothballed for years." Not mothballed, Lauren realized. Hidden. The Zenthari fleet broke formation, their ships scattering as human torpedoes hunted them with predatory precision. The alien commander's face filled the screen again, his reptilian features contorted in something Lauren now recognized as fear. "You do not understand what you protect," he hissed. "Those creatures are weapons, ancient weapons. They will turn on you." Storm's rumble shook the deck again. Data flooded Lauren's terminal. Historical records, archaeological files, classified documents that were above her clearance level, but the cats were unlocking them anyway. She read fast. Her blood ran cold. The tigers weren't Earth animals. They were something older. Something that had been found in a derelict alien vessel at the edge of the solar system 15 years ago. 3 genetically engineered bioweapons, created by a civilization that had died out millennia before humanity left their caves. The military had kept them secret, studied them, and eventually one officer had taken a different approach. Ryan Holt had treated them like living beings instead of weapons. The specimens bonded with the human male, the Zenthar commander continued. He corrupted their programming, made them believe they serve, but they serve only death. Then why are you so desperate to have them back? Lauren challenged. The alien's silence told her everything. Another 6 Zenthari ships vanished in brilliant fireballs. The torpedoes were running out, but it didn't matter. The 3 Tigers had turned the entire station into an extension of themselves. Every sensor became their eyes. Every weapon became their claws. Incoming transmission, Greg announced. It's not from the Zenthari. The view screen split. A human face appeared, weathered and scarred, with eyes that had seen too much. Captain Ryan Holt looked exactly as Lauren remembered, except now he stood on the bridge of a ship she'd never seen before. Behind him, dozens of similar Tigers moved with purpose across multiple stations. Lauren, I need you to listen very carefully, Ryan said. His voice carried an edge of urgency that made her spine straighten. The Zenthari aren't trying to capture Storm and the others. They're trying to kill them before they wake up the rest. The rest of what? Every ship I've visited in the past 6 months had Tigers in stasis, Ryan explained. Hundreds of them, thousands, all waiting for the right trigger. The Zenthari's civilization didn't fall naturally. It was conquered by the species that created these cats. They'd been hunting down every last bioweapon for centuries, trying to prevent exactly what's about to happen. On Lauren's console, new data streams appeared. Coordinates throughout human space. Military installations, research facilities, deep space stations, each one housing dormant Tigers that were now waking up. Storm turned his massive head toward her. In his golden eyes, she saw not just intelligence, but purpose. Ancient, undeniable purpose. Ryan, what's about to happen? She asked, though part of her already knew. His expression was grim. Humanity just inherited an army designed to destroy gods, and every hostile species in the galaxy is about to learn why you don't threaten someone's cats. The Zenthari fleet began to retreat. Storm's roar echoed across every human frequency, and thousands of Tigers across dozens of worlds answered. The Legion was waking. The Zenthar retreat lasted exactly 43 seconds before their desperation turned to rage. 20 warships pivoted in unison, firing everything they had directly at the station. Lauren's hands flew across her console. Brace for impact! Storm didn't move. Neither did Ash or Ember. The incoming barrage of plasma bolts and kinetic missiles filled the view screen like a wall of annihilation rushing toward them. Then the Tigers sang. It wasn't a roar this time. It was something harmonic, layered with frequencies that made reality shiver. The station's shields didn't activate. Instead, the space between the station and the incoming fire rippled like disturbed water. Every projectile slowed, stopped, then reversed direction with twice the velocity. The Zenthari ships that fired the salvo died in their own flames. Physics just took a coffee break, Greg muttered, his face pale. Ryan's transmission crackled with interference. Lauren, I'm 6 hours out with reinforcements. Can you hold? She looked at the tactical display. 27 Zenthari warships remained, and they were repositioning for another assault. Her station had a crew of 12 and 3 Tigers that apparently rewrote the laws of physics when they felt like it. We'll manage, she said. Vanessa's station erupted with alerts. Commander, I'm detecting spatial anomalies opening throughout the sector. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. The view screen shifted to show the sensor data. Tears in space-time blossomed like flowers across the void, and from each one emerged ships. Human ships, but not military vessels. Civilian transports, cargo haulers, mining rigs, even a few colony shuttles. Every single one broadcasting the same message. This is the freighter Dakota's run. We're here for the cats. Mining station Copper Ridge, standing by. Nobody touches those Tigers. Colony ship New Horizon reporting. We've got claws, too. Lauren's throat tightened. Somehow, across the vastness of space, ordinary humans had heard the call. heard what the Tigers represented. They came armed with improvised weapons, retrofitted engines, and a stubbornness that had carried humanity from caves to the stars. The Zenthari commander appeared on screen again, his scaled features twisted with disbelief. You bring civilian vessels to a military engagement? You sacrifice your weak for animals? You really don't understand humans at all, Lauren replied. These aren't sacrifices, they're volunteers. Storm's paw pressed harder against the console. Data flowed directly into Lauren's mind now, not through screens but through something deeper. She understood the Tigers' combat algorithms, saw battlefield projections that accounted for every variable, felt the weight of purpose that had driven an ancient civilization to create the perfect weapons. But she also felt something the original creators never anticipated. The Tigers had spent 6 months with her. They'd learned to trust, to bond, to care about the strange, furless creatures that fed them and spoke to them like they mattered. The bioweapons had become companions. And companions protected their own. All ships, this is Commander Pierce, she transmitted across every frequency. The Zenthari want to fight. Let's show them what happens when you threaten our family. The civilian fleet surged forward with reckless courage. The Zenthari focused fire on the easiest targets, and that's when Lauren saw the Tigers' true genius. Every civilian ship had one of the awakened bioweapons on board. Freighters dodged with fighter jet precision. Colony ships absorbed hits that should have vaporized them. Mining rigs rammed Zenthari cruisers and tore through their hulls like the alien armor was tissue paper. Storm, Ash, and Ember coordinated it all. 3 minds acting as one tactical consciousness, turning a ragtag fleet of civilians into a precisely orchestrated swarm of destruction. A Zenthari destroyer broke through the chaos, targeting the station's command center with a focused beam weapon that could cut through their shields like butter. Lauren watched it charge, knowing she had 3 seconds to live. Ember leaped. The Tiger's body shifted mid-jump, her form blurring into something that wasn't quite matter anymore. She hit the beam weapon's energy stream and absorbed it, her fur glowing white-hot as she converted the destructive force into raw power. When she landed back on the deck, the energy discharged through the station's weapons grid. Every human ship suddenly fired with 10 times their normal output. 12 Zenthari warships simply ceased to exist. The remaining enemy vessels fled into hyperspace, their retreat desperate and disorganized. The civilian fleet erupted in cheers that flooded every communication channel. Lauren sank into her command chair, her hands shaking. Storm patted over and rested his massive head against her shoulder. The gesture was so simple, so ordinary, that she almost laughed. "You're a good boy," she whispered. Ryan's face reappeared on screen. "Lauren, we've got a problem. The Zenthari won't stop with one defeat. They'll bring allies, other species that fear what the Tigers represent." "How many allies?" His expression went dark. "Every predator species in the known galaxy. They're already forming a coalition. Estimates suggest 5,000 warships within the week." 5,000. Storm's golden eyes met hers again. In their depths, she saw no fear, only certainty. The Legion wasn't just waking, it was gathering for war. The coalition arrived in 4 days, not 7. Lauren stood in the command center of what was now being called Firebase Olympus, watching the sensor grid light up with hostile signatures. The station had been reinforced, expanded, and turned into something between a military installation and a sanctuary. 300 Tigers now prowled its corridors, each one bonded to human crew members who had volunteered for reasons that defied military logic. 5,200 warships, Greg reported. His voice stayed steady despite the numbers. Zenthari, Krell, Vorath, and species we don't even have names for. They're holding position at the edge of the system. Ryan Holt stood beside Lauren now, having arrived with his fleet of 40 ships, carrying another 1,000 Tigers. He looked older than his years, carrying the weight of what he'd started. "They're waiting for us to surrender," he said quietly. "Not happening," Lauren replied. Across human space, the response had been immediate and overwhelming. When news spread that alien armadas threatened Earth's newest allies, volunteers flooded recruitment centers. Not soldiers, ordinary people, teachers, engineers, farmers, artists. They came because the Tigers had chosen humanity, and humanity didn't abandon those who trusted them. Storm sat at Lauren's feet, his massive form radiating calm. Around the command center, Ash and Ember coordinated with dozens of other Tigers, through some form of quantum communication that human scientists were still trying to understand. The bioweapons spoke to each other across vast distances, sharing tactical data and combat strategies refined over millennia. A transmission cut through the silence. The view screen displayed a council of alien commanders, each representing a species that had dominated their corner of the galaxy through force and fear. The Zenthari spoke first. Humans, you have 72 hours to surrender all specimens. Failure to comply results in the extermination of your species. A Krell War Master, its insectoid features clicking with each word added. You do not comprehend what you protect. These weapons ended civilizations. They will end yours. Lauren stepped forward, her hand resting on Storm's head. You're right. We don't fully understand them, but we know enough. We know they were created as tools and treated as property. We know they were hunted and feared instead of respected. And we know that when Captain Holt showed them kindness, they responded with loyalty. Loyalty, the Zenthari commander hissed. A programmed response. They are machines of flesh. Storm rose to his feet, his golden eyes fixed on the view screen with an intensity that made the alien commanders visibly recoil when he vocalized. Every Tiger across every human ship and station joined in. The harmonic frequency carried through subspace, reaching across light years in an instant. On the view screen, the Coalition fleet's formation wavered. Their ship systems flickered as the Tiger's song interfaced with alien technology, rewriting code and disabling weapons with surgical precision. That was a warning, Lauren said. Here's our counteroffer. Leave now, or discover why humanity earned the right to protect them. The Vorath Admiral, a being of pure energy, contained in a mechanical shell, pulsed with what might have been laughter. You field 300 primitive vessels against our 5,000. Your arrogance exceeds your capability. Ryan smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. You counted our warships. Did you count our civilians? The sensor display shifted, revealing the true scope of humanity's response. Behind the military fleet, a massive wall of civilian vessels stretched across the system. Tens of thousands of ships. Every freighter that could mount a weapon. Every transport that could carry Tigers. Every colony ship whose crew refused to stand idle while others fought. But there was more. On planets throughout human space, ground-based Tiger installations had gone active. Lauren's display showed the data Storm was feeding her. Launch facilities, orbital platforms, defense networks, all built in secret. Over the past 15 years, all designed around technology reverse-engineered from the ancient bioweapons. The Tigers hadn't just been hidden. They'd been integrated into humanity's infrastructure, waiting for the moment they'd be needed. You have 72 hours, Lauren repeated, throwing their words back at them. Leave our space, or learn what happens when you corner a species that befriends apex predators. The Coalition commanders conferred in their alien languages. Lauren watched their body language, saw the uncertainty creeping into their postures. They'd expected fear, capitulation. Instead, they faced a species that met overwhelming force with stubborn defiance. The Zenthari commander leaned forward. We leave. We will return. With more ships, more allies. We will not stop until every specimen is destroyed. Then you'll be fighting forever, Ryan said, because we won't give them up. Not today. Not ever. The transmission cut out. For 60 seconds, nothing happened. The Coalition fleet held position. 5,000 warships armed with enough firepower to glass every human world. Then the Krell War Master ship broke formation. It turned and jumped to hyperspace. 300 Krell vessels followed. The Vorath fleet hesitated, then did the same. Species after species peeled away, unwilling to commit to a war against an enemy that should have been terrified but somehow wasn't. Within 10 minutes only the Zenthari remained. 1,000 warships facing humanity's ragtag defense force. The reptilian commander's face reappeared on screen. His expression had shifted from arrogance to something far more dangerous, respect mixed with hatred. "This is not finished," he said. "No," Lauren agreed. "It's not. But when you come back, we'll be ready. And we'll have more Tigers." The Zenthari fleet vanished into hyperspace. The command center erupted in cheers. Crew members embraced, some crying, others laughing with the manic edge of people who'd stared down extinction and survived. Storm pressed against Lauren's leg. She knelt and wrapped her arms around the massive tiger's neck, feeling the warmth of his fur and the steady rhythm of his breathing. "Thank you," she whispered. But even as celebration echoed through Firebase Olympus, Lauren's tactical display showed new data. Storm was sharing information about what came next. The Zenthari would return, and they wouldn't make the mistake of bringing allies who might retreat. They'd bring everything. The real war was just beginning. 6 weeks passed in frantic preparation. Lauren barely slept anymore. Firebase Olympus had transformed into the nerve center of humanity's most ambitious military expansion in history, and every decision ran through her command. The station now housed 800 Tigers, each one training with human partners in combat scenarios that pushed both species to their limits. "Commander, you need to see this," Vanessa called from her station, her voice tight with urgency. Lauren crossed the command center in 3 strides. The display showed deep space reconnaissance data from the outer colonies. What she saw made her stomach drop. The Zenthari hadn't just returned. They'd brought an armada that defied comprehension. 15,000 warships, all Zenthari, all moving in perfect formation toward human space. No allies this time. No species that might lose their nerve. Just pure reptilian determination to end the tiger threat permanently. "They'll be here in 18 hours, Vanessa said quietly. Ryan appeared at Lauren's shoulder, his face grim as he studied the numbers. "We've got 400 military vessels and maybe 10,000 armed civilian ships. The math isn't even close." Storm padded into the command center, followed by a tiger Lauren had come to know as Frost, a massive white-furred male who'd bonded with a cargo pilot named Danny Cross. Both bioweapons moved with purpose, their golden eyes fixed on the tactical display as if they could read the data as clearly as any human. "They're not worried," Lauren observed. "That concerns me more than the fleet," Ryan admitted. "What do they know that we don't?" Storm's paw touched the console. Information flooded Lauren's neural link, the connection between human and tiger growing stronger with each passing day. What she saw made her breath catch. The tigers weren't just bioweapons. They were seeds. Every single one carried within its genetic code the blueprint for something far larger. The ancient civilization that created them had built in a failsafe, a final evolution triggered only when the tigers determined their adopted species was worthy. "They're asking permission," Lauren whispered. "Permission for what?" Ryan demanded. Storm's golden eyes met hers, and in that gaze she understood the question. The tigers could transform, could become something that would guarantee humanity's survival against any threat. But the cost would be permanent. They would never be the creatures they were now. Never again would Storm rest his head on her shoulder or rumble contentedly when she scratched behind his ears. They would become living warships, their consciousness distributed across vessels of flesh and metal, eternal guardians bound to humanity forever. "No," Lauren said firmly. "There has to be another way." Frost vocalized a sound that carried frustration and urgency. Danny Cross, his bonded human, spoke up from across the command center. "Commander, with respect, maybe we should let them choose. They're not pets. They're soldiers who know what's at stake." "They're both," Lauren shot back. "And I won't ask them to give up who they are just to save us." Ryan's hand gripped her shoulder. "Lauren, 15,000 ships. If the tigers don't transform, humanity doesn't survive the week." She pulled away from him, her mind racing. The command center had gone silent, every crew member watching the confrontation. Outside the viewports, human ships gathered in desperate defensive formations, civilian volunteers positioning themselves between the enemy and Earth. Storm vocalized again, softer this time. Through their neural link, Lauren felt his certainty, his willingness, his complete lack of fear. He'd made his choice. So had Frost, Ash, Ember, and the hundreds of others across human space. They wanted to transform. For humanity. For the species that had treated them as companions instead of weapons. "There's always another option," Lauren said, her voice cutting through the silence. "We fight smarter, not harder." She turned to her tactical team. "Vanessa, pull up every engagement the Zenthari have fought in the past century. Greg, I need data on their command structure, ship formations, communication protocols. If the Tigers can interface with technology, then we use that." Ryan caught on immediately. "You want to turn their own fleet against them?" "Not turn," Lauren corrected. "Confuse, disrupt, make them fight blind while we hit them with everything we've got." She looked at Storm. "But we do it together, as we are now." The Tiger's rumble vibrated through the deck plating. Approval. Over the next 17 hours, Lauren and her team built a strategy that would have seemed insane to any conventional military mind. The Tigers would broadcast a harmonic frequency that interfered with Zenthari neural implants, the organic technology their species used for ship-to-ship coordination. Humans would exploit the resulting chaos with hit-and-run tactics, targeting command vessels and communication hubs. It was desperate. It was risky, and it gave them a 5% chance of survival. Better than zero. When the Zenthari fleet emerged from hyperspace, they came like a tide of destruction, blotting out the stars with their sheer numbers. Their formation was flawless, their approach methodical, their intent absolute. Lauren sat in her command chair, Storm beside her, and opened a channel to every human vessel in the system. "This is Commander Pierce to all ships. They came expecting to fight weapons. Show them what happens when they fight a family." The Tigers sang, reality bent. And 15,000 Zenthari warships suddenly discovered that their perfect formation had become a chaotic nightmare. Ships veered into each other as neural implants misfired. Command signals crossed and conflicted. Weapons locked onto friendly vessels as targeting systems lost coherence. The human fleet struck like a swarm of hornets, civilian ships ramming cruisers, while military vessels fired on disabled targets. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't honorable. It was effective. In the first 30 minutes, humanity destroyed 800 Zenthari warships, but Lauren knew it wouldn't be enough. The enemy was adapting, shutting down compromised systems and reverting to manual control. Their numerical advantage remained overwhelming. Then Storm showed her what the Tigers had been building while humanity prepared for war. On every human world, in every Tiger facility, the bioweapons had been constructing something in secret. Not weapons. Not ships. Amplifiers. Massive organic structures that could boost the Tiger's harmonic frequencies across entire star systems. They activated simultaneously, and the Zenthari fleet's technology didn't just malfunction. It died. 15,000 warships became 15,000 coffins drifting in the void, their crews alive but helpless as every system failed at once. Lauren stared at the tactical display in disbelief. They surrendered their ships without firing a shot. Storm's golden eyes gleamed with satisfaction. The Tigers had found a third option. Not transformation, not conventional warfare. Something uniquely suited to bioweapons who'd learned from a species that valued cleverness over brute force. The Zenthari commander's face appeared on screen, his scaled features slack with shock. "How?" "You keep treating them like weapons," Lauren said. "We treated them like partners. They learned from us, adapted, became something you never anticipated." She leaned forward. "Now you're going to learn what happens when you make humanity angry. We're keeping your ships. Your crews can leave in escape pods, but the fleet stays here as a reminder." "A reminder of what?" "That the cats chose us, and we don't lose what we love." The galaxy changed in the months that followed. Lauren stood in the observation deck of Firebase Olympus, watching construction crews retrofit the captured Zenthari vessels with human technology. 8,000 warships, all integrated with Tiger neural interfaces, all crewed by volunteers who'd bonded with the bioweapons during the desperate defense of Earth. Humanity had gone from a minor spacefaring species to a galactic power overnight, and the rest of the universe was still trying to process what that meant. "We're getting delegations from 40 species requesting diplomatic meetings," Greg reported, joining her at the viewport. "Another 60 want trade agreements, and the Krell are offering a formal alliance." "The same Krell who abandoned us during the first engagement?" Lauren shook her head. "Everyone loves a winner." Ryan Holt walked up behind them, Storm padding silently at his side. The tiger had barely left Lauren's presence since the battle, as if sensing the weight of command wearing her down. "It's not just opportunism," Ryan said. "We proved something out there. Showed the galaxy that cooperation beats domination. Half these species have been conquered or threatened by the Zenthari at some point. They're seeing us as liberators." "We didn't fight to liberate anyone," Lauren countered. "We fought because they threatened our friends," Storm rumbled in agreement. A priority transmission interrupted the conversation. Vanessa's face appeared on the nearest display, her expression troubled. "Commander, we've got an unidentified vessel approaching the station. It's not responding to hails, but it's broadcasting Zenthari codes that predate their current government by centuries." Lauren's hand instinctively went to Storm's head. "Battle stations? The ship's not armed," Vanessa continued. "Sensors show a single life form aboard. And Commander, the Tigers are reacting. All 800 of them. They're gathering in the main hangar." By the time Lauren reached the hangar bay, it looked like a sea of fur and muscle. Tigers filled every available space, their golden eyes all fixed on the massive airlock doors. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, with something Lauren had never felt from them before: recognition. The unidentified vessel docked without incident. The airlock cycled. The doors opened. What emerged wasn't Zenthari. It stood 8 feet tall on 4 powerful legs, its body covered in scales that shimmered with every color Lauren could name and several she couldn't. The head was feline, massive and regal, with eyes that glowed with the same golden light as the tiger's. But this creature was ancient, in a way that transcended age, carrying itself with the gravity of epochs. Storm and every other tiger dropped into a posture that looked like reverence. "I am called Axiom," the creature spoke, its voice resonating through the hangar without moving its mouth. "I am the first, the template from which all others were created. I have slept for 10,000 years, waiting for the signal that my children had found a species worthy of our bond." Lauren found her voice, despite the awe pressing down on her. "You created the tigers?" "I am the tigers," Axiom corrected. "Or rather, they are fragments of me, distributed across the galaxy to find those who would treat them as partners rather than tools. The Zenthari were my original creators, but they failed the test. They saw only weapons, so I waited, my children sleeping in stasis, until a worthy species emerged." Ryan stepped forward. "And humanity passed your test?" Axiom's golden eyes fixed on him with intensity that could have melted steel. "Not humanity, one human. You, Ryan Holt, who found 3 of my children in a derelict vessel and chose kindness over exploitation. You fed them, spoke to them, treated them as living beings deserving of dignity. That choice rippled outward, teaching my children what it meant to be valued. The ancient being turned to Lauren, and you, who refused to let them sacrifice themselves despite overwhelming odds, who sought a third path when only 2 seemed available. That is the nature of the species I have searched for. Not the strongest, not the most advanced, but the ones who choose compassion when logic demands cruelty." Storm moved to stand beside Lauren, pressing his massive body against her leg. The gesture was possessive, protective, and unmistakably clear. "My children have chosen," Axiom continued. "They wish to remain with humanity, to evolve alongside you, to become something neither of us could achieve alone." "What does that mean?" Lauren asked. Axiom's form began to glow. The tigers throughout the hangar responded, their bodies luminescent with the same energy. Lauren felt it through her neural link with Storm, a transformation beginning at the cellular level. "The bond between human and tiger will deepen," Axiom explained. "Not the forced evolution I offered before, but a gradual merging of consciousness. Over generations, your species and mine will become inseparable. Humans will gain our strength, our technology, our ancient knowledge. We will gain your adaptability, your creativity, your capacity for hope in the face of extinction." The light intensified. Lauren felt Storm's presence in her mind expanding, his thoughts intertwining with hers in ways that went beyond simple communication. She sensed his memories, his emotions, his absolute certainty that this was right, but she also sensed his question. The same question he'd asked before the great battle. Permission. "Storm," she whispered, kneeling to look into his golden eyes. "Are you sure this is what you want?" His response flooded through their link. Images of the past 6 months, her feeding him, talking to him during long shifts, scratching behind his ears while reviewing tactical reports, the simple moments of companionship that had meant everything to a being designed only to destroy. He was sure. Lauren looked at Axiom. "If we do this, there's no going back?" "There is always choice," the ancient being replied. "But some choices shape the future of galaxies. This is one of them." She thought about humanity's history, the species that had domesticated wolves and turned them into loyal companions, the people who'd reached for the stars despite knowing the void could kill them, the volunteers who'd flown civilian ships against impossible odds because they refused to abandon those who trusted them. "Then we choose together," Lauren said. Axiom's form began to dissolve, breaking apart into streams of golden light that flowed into every tiger in the hangar. Storm's body absorbed the energy, his form growing brighter until Lauren had to shield her eyes. When the light faded, Storm looked the same, but through their neural link, Lauren felt the difference. He was more now, more capable, more permanently bound to her and to humanity than any bond in history. Across human space, the transformation rippled through every tiger simultaneously. 800 bioweapons became 800 partners in the truest sense. Their consciousness expanded to match their human companions. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Zenthar monitored the energy signatures and understood what they'd lost. Not just a war, but the chance to evolve beyond their nature. Humanity and the tigers had found each other, and together, they would reshape the galaxy. Ryan placed a hand on Lauren's shoulder. "What now, Commander?" She smiled, feeling Storm's contentment through their bond. "Now we show the universe what partnership really means." The Legion wasn't just awake anymore. It was complete. 10 years later, the galaxy barely resembled what it had been. Lauren Pierce, now Admiral of the Unified Fleet, walked through the gardens of New Olympus Station with Storm at her side. The tiger moved slower now, age catching up despite the genetic enhancements from Axiom's gift. Gray streaked his muzzle, and his once vibrant gold eyes had softened to amber. But the bond between them had only grown stronger. "Admiral, the Council is ready for you," a young officer called out. Her name was Sophie Grant, and beside her walked a tiger named Dawn, barely 3 years old. The new generation, born from the merging that had begun a decade ago. Lauren nodded and made her way to the Council chambers. Inside, representatives from 70 species gathered around a circular table designed to emphasize equality. Humans, Krell, Voref, even a delegation of Zenthari who'd overthrown their old government and sued for peace. At the center of it all stood a holographic display showing the current state of galactic affairs. Green zones indicated peaceful territories under the Unified Accord. Yellow showed contested regions. Red marked the remaining hostile empires who refused cooperation. The red zones were shrinking. "Admiral Pierce," the Krell ambassador clicked in greeting. "We've received confirmation from the Draxon Collective. They're ready to sign the treaty. That would make 71 species joined in the Accord. 71 governments who'd chosen partnership over conquest, cooperation over domination, all because humanity and the Tigers had proven it was possible. Ryan Holt sat among the council members, his own tiger companion, a female named Sky, resting beside his chair. He'd retired from active military service but remained an ambassador, the man whose simple act of kindness had started everything. "Before we proceed," Ryan said, "I want to address the elephant in the room, or the tiger, as it were." Storm's ears perked up at the familiar voice. "The younger generations of tigers are different from the originals," Ryan continued. Dawn and others like her were born from human-tiger partnerships. They're not just bioweapons awakened from stasis. They're something new. Something that's never existed before. Sophie spoke up, her hand resting on Dawn's head. She can do things Storm's generation couldn't. Not just the harmonic frequencies or technology interface. She can sense emotions across light years, predict fleet movements before they happen. Yesterday, she solved a quantum physics problem that stumped our best scientists. Because she's both, Lauren explained. Human intuition and tiger processing power merged from birth. Axiom's gift didn't just bond our species, it's creating a new one. The Zenthari delegate, a younger female named Sarith who'd never known the old regime, leaned forward. How many of these next-generation tigers exist? 3,000, Lauren answered, all bonded to humans before they were born, all representing the future Axiom envisioned. Sarith's expression was unreadable. And you trust them? Trust that they won't become what my ancestors feared? Weapons that turn on their creators? Storm rose to his feet and padded across the chamber. The ancient tiger stopped before Sarith, his golden amber eyes meeting hers without aggression. Through the neural link, Lauren felt what he wanted to communicate. Storm says your fear is understandable, Lauren translated, but built on a false premise. The original tigers turned on the Zenthari because they were treated as property. These new ones are raised as family. Children don't turn on loving parents. And if the love stops, Sarith challenged. If future humans forget the lessons of today, Dawn vocalized, a sound that carried harmonics Storm's generation had never achieved. Sophie smiled. She says that's why they remember for us. How a tiger carries the complete history of the bond. They'll never forget what humanity did for them, and they'll make sure we never forget what they represent. The council chamber fell silent as the weight of those words settled. Humanity hadn't just gained allies. They'd gained guardians of their own better nature, living reminders of the choice to show compassion when fear would have been easier. Then I moved to expand the Accord's charter, Sarith said quietly, to formally recognize the human-tiger partnership as the foundation of galactic peace, so that all species understand this isn't conquest through force, but evolution through cooperation. The vote was unanimous. As the council adjourned, Lauren walked back through the gardens with Storm. The tiger moved carefully now, his powerful muscles not quite as responsive as they once were. She knew he had maybe 5 years left, 10 at most. How it could have slipped outside of our perimeters. You changed everything, she whispered. One stubborn bioweapon who decided humans were worth protecting. Storm's rumble was soft, contented. Through their bond, she felt his satisfaction, not pride, just the deep peace of a being who'd found purpose and fulfilled it completely. Ryan joined them under the artificial stars, Sky at his side. They're proposing a memorial, he said, for the original 800, the ones who made the first choice. Storm's not dead yet, Lauren protested. No, but when he is, when all of them are. The galaxy needs to remember, not just the battle or the transformation. The moment when 3 tigers in a cargo bay decided that one human's kindness meant more than 10,000 years of programming. Lauren looked at the younger tigers playing in the gardens. Dawn chased Frost's daughter through flower beds, while their human companions laughed and joined the game. Children and tigers, growing up together, unable to imagine a world where they weren't partners. This was Axiom's true gift. Not power, not technology. A chance to become something neither species could have achieved alone. Storm pressed his head against Lauren's chest, and she wrapped her arms around him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. The heart of a weapon that chose love. The heart of a companion who'd reshaped the galaxy. Rest easy, old friend, she murmured. Your legacy is secure. Through their bond, Storm's final message came clear. Not words, just a feeling. Gratitude, pride, and the absolute certainty that he'd made the right choice that day in the cargo bay when he first met Ryan Holt. The Alpha had left his cats in a woman's care. They'd returned leading a legion none could defy. And in doing so, they'd taught the galaxy what it meant to truly come home. Storm passed quietly in his sleep 3 years later, surrounded by those who loved him. Lauren held his massive head in her lap as his breathing slowed, feeling their neural bond thin like morning fog under sunlight. Around them in the memorial grove, hundreds gathered, humans who'd served with him, tigers who'd fought beside him, even Sereth and a delegation of Zenthari who came to honor the being that had forgiven their species when he had every reason not to. "You did good," Lauren whispered as his golden eyes closed for the last time. "You did so good." The bond severed. For the first time in 13 years, Lauren's mind was her own again. The silence felt like losing a limb. Dawn approached slowly, the young tiger's eyes reflecting understanding beyond her years. She pressed against Lauren's side, offering comfort without trying to replace what had been lost. Some bonds were unique, irreplaceable. Ryan stood nearby, tears streaming down his weathered face. Sky had passed 2 months earlier, and the grief still carved deep lines around his eyes. Of the original 800 tigers, fewer than 50 remained now. The last of Axiom's ancient children, their purpose fulfilled, their legacy secured. "We should say something," Greg offered. He'd stayed on as Lauren's second-in-command through the years, watching the galaxy transform around them. Lauren shook her head. Storm never needed words. Instead, she stood and placed her hand on the memorial stone that had been prepared. It bore no inscription yet, waiting for this moment. Through her touch, the stone activated, projecting a holographic record of Storm's life. Not the battles or the transformations, the quiet moments. Him sleeping in the command center while Lauren worked. His rumble of contentment when she'd scratch behind his ears. The way he'd press against her leg when he sensed her stress. The galaxy had monuments to the great battle. Statues of the unified fleet's victory. Museums documenting the human-tiger partnership's political impact. But this memorial showed the truth. Storm had been a companion first. A weapon only when necessary. And always, always a friend. Dawn vocalized, joined by every tiger present. The harmonic frequency they created wasn't for warfare or technology disruption. It was something the younger generation had developed on their own, a song of remembrance, of love that transcended species, of bonds that death couldn't truly break. Across the galaxy, every human-tiger pair stopped what they were doing and joined the song. Billions of voices, human and tiger, raised in tribute to the ones who'd made it all possible. In the Zenthari system, Sereth stood on her homeworld and added her voice to the chorus. Her people had been enemies once. Now they mourned alongside humanity, recognizing what they'd almost destroyed in their fear. The song lasted 7 minutes. When it ended, the silence that followed felt different than before. Not empty, full of presence, of memory transformed into purpose. "The younger ones will carry on," Vanessa said quietly. She'd brought her own tiger companion, a male named Torch who'd been born just months after the merger. "They'll make sure no one forgets." Lauren nodded, but couldn't speak yet. The grief was too fresh, too raw. A message came through on her communication device. Official, marked urgent. She almost ignored it, but Dawn nudged her hand insistently. The holographic display showed Ambassador Chen Wei from the outer colonies. "Admiral Pierce, I apologize for the timing, but we have a situation. Long-range sensors detected something at the edge of charted space. A derelict vessel. The energy signature matches Axiom's ship from 10 years ago." Lauren's breath caught. "That's impossible." Axiom merged with the tigers. "There shouldn't be anything left." "There's a message, ma'am, specifically addressed to you. It says, 'For when the first of my children returns home.'" Ryan moved to her side, reading the display over her shoulder. Axiom knew Storm would die, prepared something for this moment. The grief in Lauren's chest shifted, making room for something else. Curiosity, purpose. The familiar pull of duty that had defined her life since 3 tigers first entered her care. "Prep a ship," she ordered. "Small crew. Volunteers only." "I'm coming," Ryan said immediately. "So am I," Vanessa added. Dawn vocalized her own insistence. Where Lauren went, she would follow. Within hours, they departed on a vessel called Legacy, carrying a crew of 20 humans and their tiger partners. The journey to the coordinates would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks to wonder what Axiom had left behind. 3 weeks to grieve and remember and prepare for whatever came next. The derelict vessel hung in space like a monument to forgotten ages, its hull covered in the same shimmering scales as Axiom's original form. As Legacy approached, the ship came alive, lights flickering on in sequences that formed words in a language only the tigers could read. Dawn translated through her bond with Sophie. "Welcome, inheritors. Welcome. Proof that my choice was correct. Welcome to the gift I prepared for when my children's sacrifice became complete." The airlock opened without prompting. Lauren led the team inside, finding corridors that bent reality, rooms that existed in impossible spaces, technology that made humanity's greatest achievements look like cave paintings. At the heart of the ship, they found a chamber filled with stasis pods, thousands of them, tens of thousands. "More tigers?" Greg breathed. "No," Dawn corrected, her young voice carrying certainty beyond her years. "Seeds, genetic templates, not just for tigers, for every species Axiom encountered over millennia of searching. Every creature with the potential for partnership, for bonds that transcend individual existence." Lauren approached the central console. A holographic recording activated. Axiom's massive form materialized, looking exactly as it had the day they'd met. "If you are seeing this, my first children have completed their natural cycle," the recording said. "They chose you, loved you, and in doing so proved that the capacity for partnership exists not just in humanity, but in the very fabric of consciousness itself. This ship contains the tools to spread that gift, to find other species worthy of bonds like yours, to ensure that what you and my children built becomes the foundation of galactic civilization for eons to come. Worlds where other species waited, unknowing, for the chance to find their own companions, their own storm, ash, or ember. The work is not finished," Axiom continued. "It has only just begun. My children sleep here, waiting for partners among the stars. And you, inheritors, have earned the right to guide them, to share what you learned, to teach the galaxy that the strongest bonds are not forged in fire, but in kindness." The recording faded. Lauren stood in silence, feeling the weight of responsibility settle across her shoulders. Storm had given her 13 years of companionship, loyalty, and love. Now he was asking for one more thing, to make sure others could experience what they'd shared. "It'll take generations," Ryan said quietly. "Centuries, maybe. Finding the right species, building the bonds, teaching them what we learned. Good thing we've got help," Vanessa replied, gesturing to the young tigers present. Dawn and her generation, who would live longer than any human, carrying the memory of Storm's choice forward through time. Lauren placed her hand on the console, accepting what Axiom offered. The ship responded. Systems coming online, stasis pods beginning their wake cycles. The next chapter was beginning. "Storm," she whispered to the memory of her companion. "You absolute pain in the ass. Even in death, you're volunteering me for impossible missions." But she was smiling through the tears. Because Storm had taught her something fundamental, that the impossible just meant no one had tried hard enough yet. That companionship could reshape galaxies. That choosing love over fear wasn't weakness. It was the only strength that mattered. The Alpha had left his cats in a woman's care, and they'd returned leading a legion none could defy. Now that woman would carry their legacy to the stars, finding others who deserved to know what it meant to bond with something greater than themselves. The memorial grove on New Olympus would grow. More names would be added, more companions would be honored, but their work would continue.